In the quiet, pine-fringed hills of Asheville, North Carolina, spring had just begun to settle in. The kind of place where life moved gently, mornings filled with mist rolling off the Blue Ridge Mountains and neighbors waving from across their porches. At the end of a sleepy cul-de-sac sat the Harper family's house. A cozy, two-story home painted in robin's egg blue with white shutters and a flower box overflowing with daffodils. To those who passed by, it looked like a home plucked from a storybook. Welcome to Family Crime Chronicles, your ultimate destination for chilling true crime stories. We uncover the darkest corners of real-life mysteries, twisted affairs. Please subscribe now, like and comment where you're watching us from. Rebecca Harper, 40, was the center of that home. A woman known for her warm smile, flower-dusted aprons, and her peach cobbler. A local favorite sold under the small home business she ran from her kitchen. She moved with quiet purpose, always making time for a kind word at the grocery store or a chat after church. Her husband, Eric Harper, 45, was equally beloved, a middle school science teacher who wore earth-tone cardigans and had a way of turning even the dullest facts into something kids wanted to learn. His students called him Mr. H, and the staff at East River Middle described him as the calm in any storm. Together, they were raising 3 daughters. Chloe, 17, was the eldest, reserved and observant. She was a gifted pianist whose fingers danced over ivory keys with elegance well beyond her years. She dreamed of attending a conservatory in Boston and spent hours in the sunroom practicing Chopin. Ivy, 14, was pure motion, a standout track athlete, always running, always pushing boundaries. She had her mother's stubbornness and her father's loyalty, a firecracker with a soft heart. And Sophie, just 10, was the youngest, a quiet girl who loved birds and books more than people. She spent her afternoons building tiny nests from twigs and cotton, pretending to care for invisible sparrows in the backyard trees. On the outside, the Harpers were the picture-perfect family. They baked together, went on mountain hikes, and filled their Instagram with matching Christmas pajamas and backyard birthdays. But behind the pastel walls and sweet smiles, something else was brewing, because even the most peaceful homes can carry silent storms. In the weeks leading up to the tragedy, friends and neighbors began to notice changes in Rebecca Harper, small cracks in the once perfect facade that no one wanted to believe. The woman who had been the heart of so many neighborhood gatherings suddenly became distant. Her usual morning posts on social media, photos of freshly baked pies, smiling daughters, and church potlucks, stopped altogether. Days went by without a single update. Rebecca stopped attending Sunday services at Grace Community Church, where she'd once been a devoted member. Invitations to book clubs, coffee mornings, and PDA meetings went unanswered or were gently declined. The orders for her bakery dwindled as well. Loyal customers found her phone unanswered, and the once bustling kitchen grew quiet. Neighbors began hearing loud shouting late into the night. Harsh words exchanged in a home that had known little more than laughter before. Eric, the ever-patient husband, confided quietly to his brother Mark one evening, "Rebecca, she's slipping away. I don't know how to reach her anymore." Chloe noticed the shift too. Her mother would often stare at the walls for hours, unblinking and silent. Sometimes she wept quietly, alone in the kitchen or in the dim light of the living room. Ivy spoke about the nights when Rebecca locked herself in the garage, sometimes for the entire night, the cold metal door bolted tight, muffling whatever storm was raging inside. No one outside the Harper home understood how dark Rebecca's thoughts had grown. The signs were there, but like whispers in a storm, they went unheard. April 6 began like any other day. The Harpers had eaten dinner around 6 p.m., a quiet meal. Eric had made spaghetti. Rebecca barely touched her plate. Sophie tried to talk about a bird she'd seen at school. No one really responded. The air was thick. That night, Ivy was the first to notice something wrong. As the family began settling in, she overheard her parents in the kitchen, voices rising. Their argument was sharper than usual. It was about money, about Rebecca's business, about the unpaid bills piling up. Eric's voice trembled with frustration, but Rebecca's response cut like glass. "If I disappeared, maybe you'd finally be free," she spat. Maybe they all would. Sophie had gone to bed crying. She was young, but not too young to feel the tension tearing at her family. She curled beneath her covers, clutching her stuffed sparrow, her face wet with tears. By 10:30 p.m., the house had fallen into a tense, uneasy silence. The kind that isn't peaceful, just hollow. Chloe put in her earbuds and tried to lose herself in the music she used to love. Ivy lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Sophie's nightlight glowed soft and yellow in the hallway. And Rebecca? She had disappeared into the garage again. Midnight passed. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., then at 3:12 a.m., a sharp sound echoed to the house. A thud. Something heavy. Muffled but jarring. Chloe sat up, heart pounding. She pulled her earbuds out. For a moment, there was nothing but stillness. Then another noise. She opened her bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. That's when she saw it. A thin trail of blood snaking down the staircase. She didn't call out. She didn't breathe. She just followed the trail with trembling steps, her hand brushing the wall as she descended. And there, standing at the foot of the stairs, motionless, breathless, was her mother. Rebecca was holding a hammer. Blood soaked her nightgown. Her expression was blank, her eyes vacant. She didn't speak, didn't move. For a second, it felt like time had stopped. And then Chloe ran, out the front door, across the yard, barefoot in the cold. She didn't stop until she reached the neighbor's porch, where she banged her fist against the door and collapsed in sobs. Inside the Harper home, the silence deepened, and Rebecca stayed there, unmoving, humming softly to herself. At 3:26 a.m., inside a neighbor's kitchen, Chloe Harper sat wrapped in a blanket, her hands still shaking. She clutched the phone like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she spoke to the 911 dispatcher. "Please, I think my mom killed my family." The operator tried to keep her calm, but Chloe's words came in bursts. "There was blood." She had a hammer. "I think my sisters are—" She couldn't finish the sentence. At 4:03 a.m., police arrived at the Harper residence. The lights inside the house were still off. The front door was slightly ajar. Officers entered with weapons drawn, not sure what they were walking into. They didn't expect the quiet. Inside the living room, they found Eric Harper slumped in an armchair. No pulse. Ivy was discovered in the hallway near the garage. She had likely heard the commotion and tried to intervene. Sophie was in bed, still, peaceful. She never had a chance. Then the kitchen. Rebecca sat at the table, her hands resting in her lap, soaked with blood. Her gaze was distant. In front of her lay a single sheet of paper, lined, torn from a spiral notebook. At the top, in shaky handwriting, it read, "Reasons they'll forgive me." Underneath, a list of 5 phrases. Because I loved them. Because I was drowning. Because I was tired. Because I failed them. Because I wanted peace. She was humming a lullaby, one Chloe recognized instantly. It was the same one Rebecca used to sing when putting her daughters to sleep. Rebecca didn't resist arrest. She didn't say a word. She just hummed. Rebecca Harper was arrested without incident, still in her blood-soaked nightgown, still humming that lullaby. The town of Asheville awoke that morning to sirens and disbelief. Neighbors stood behind police tape, mouths agape, clutching each other for answers that wouldn't come. News vans followed by noon. Reporters described it as an unspeakable act of violence from a mother once seen as the heart of her family. But beneath the shock and grief, investigators began to uncover what had led to this unraveling. Rebecca had been hiding a mountain of secrets. First, the finances. The Harpers were deep in debt, nearly $90,000 across credit cards and unpaid business loans. Rebecca's once thriving home bakery had been crumbling for nearly a year. Orders dried up. Supplies went unpaid. She never told Eric. Second, her diary, discovered in the garage beneath boxes of flour and old photos. Each entry grew darker than the last. "I can't be what they need. This house is a cage. Sometimes I wonder if they'd smile more if I just disappeared. I look at them and only see how I failed." Mental health professionals brought in to assess her condition diagnose her with severe postpartum psychosis, compounded by prolonged isolation, financial stress, and unresolved childhood trauma. Rebecca had never received help, never asked. Friends and family described her as the strong one, the dependable mom, the one who held everything together. No one knew how far she'd slipped, not even her sisters, one of whom had spoken to her on the phone just a week prior. She said she was tired, but not tired like sleepy, tired like she was disappearing. And Chloe, in a quiet moment during questioning, she told detectives something she'd never told anyone before. Mom used to say if I ever go quiet for too long, come find me. No one ever did. The trial began 6 months later. By then, the story had spread across the country. The Harper family tragedy became a headline on morning shows, podcasts, tabloids. But inside the courtroom, it was quieter, more personal. Rebecca Harper appeared in a prison-issued jumpsuit, her once-long hair cut short. She sat motionless throughout the proceedings, eyes downcast, often expressionless. When asked if she understood the charges, she simply nodded. She pleaded guilty but mentally ill to 3 counts of murder. The psychiatric evaluations were unanimous. While she was aware of her actions, she was in a state of complete psychotic dissociation, driven by untreated mental illness, emotional collapse, and deep psychological fatigue. The judge sentenced her to life imprisonment in a psychiatric correctional facility with no possibility of parole. Chloe did not attend every day of the trial, but she was there on the final day. She didn't take the stand. She didn't speak during sentencing. But afterward, outside the courthouse, she faced the cameras and delivered a statement that silenced even the most hardened journalists. My mother broke, but she didn't start broken. She loved us. She just didn't know how to ask for help. Mental illness isn't always screaming or violence. Sometimes it's quiet, so quiet that everyone misses it. I don't forgive her yet. Maybe I never will. But I still believe she wasn't a monster. She was a mother who slipped too far. Then she turned and walked away. The Harper family's tragedy wasn't rooted in evil. It was rooted in silence. Silence about mental health. Silence about financial stress. Silence when help was needed most. Rebecca Harper didn't wake up one day and decide to destroy her family. She drowned slowly, in pain, in fear, in the invisible weight of unspoken suffering. And by the time anyone noticed, it was too late. Chloe, the only survivor, now lives with relatives out of state. She's finishing high school, attending therapy, learning to speak again, not just about what happened, but about everything that led to it. She doesn't share her story for sympathy. She shares it as a warning. Sometimes the people smiling the widest are the ones barely holding on. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, don't wait. You are not a burden. You are not alone. Help is always within reach.